So we talked about how ethnography approaches things holistically, right, from a variety of different angles. It includes things like participant observation, active participation in people's lives. It includes things like direct observation. It also includes things like interviews, talking with people about language, talking with them about speech. It can include interviews in which questions about language that was heard, language that was observed, posed to an informant or a research subject. And it really includes, as a crucial technology, would be audio and visual recording. Once we are in a community and we are participating, we are observing, we gain consent to use recording technologies, and after we've recorded a particular speech event, a speech happening, a speech situation, we will then transcribe. We will listen back to that recording, and then we will transcribe that into a written text as part of our analysis of the data that we are producing. None of this really could have happened without the development of recording technologies. They've always been an important part of anthropology, but it really wasn't until you had transportable, small, condensed recording equipment. Transcription is basically this idea to transfer, right, from the recording itself into some sort of written form. It can just be simply typewriting, right, the recorded content. There's a lot of theory behind how we transcribe. If you can imagine being in a particular context and doing that recording, the recording is getting the sound aspect, but there's a lot more that the researcher is witness and observant to. And this is particularly true today when we use things like digital video recorders that capture both video and sound. And so transcription is always a way of deciding, making decisions, determining what is going to be included in the transcript and what is not. And that's usually really dependent on what the researcher's objectives are, what they want to use the transcript for. So if they have a particular research question, the relevant data for that research question. But it's a very important part of this process of from using recording technologies, recording the sound and other aspects of these speech situations, right, to transforming that into data that can be used in answering questions and making arguments. We're going to be using audio and video recording. We're going to be taking the spoken form of language and we're going to be transferring it into a written form. We're going to interpret it and we're going to typewrite that content using various kinds of software. There are many different kinds of decisions that need to be made when you begin to transcribe audio or video recordings. But again, the kind of goal here is to produce data, produce evidence. So using an ethnography of speech, we're trying to understand this relationship between language and culture. In this particular slide, you do see a very, very basic transcription. And there is, if we're using like an Ampex reel-to-reel or a digital voice recorder, right, we're just getting the sound. And so we might have a mother saying Bage, a person's name, Bage, do you see it? And then you hear the mother speaking again. This time, as you're there observing it, the mother is speaking directly to Bage and says, my brother, I'll carry the other half. So just a few seconds, right, in a recording. But you can see just above that transcript that there's this contextual information that's important to make sense, right, of what that sound is, because the sound is an abstraction from speech or language in the world that is in relationship to relationships between individuals, and then with those individuals or those social relationships kind of in the world as a part of a way of life, people going about their everyday life, subsisting, existing, and so on. And so you see this basic description. Ulahi is holding her infant son Bage and teaching him about cooperation. Abi, her other son, and Bage's sibling, is holding a stick on his shoulder in a manner similar to that in which Papuan police carry their patrol boxes. So if you think about this description, right, it adds a lot of meaning that is contextual, right, to the actual speech itself. And that is as important as the speech itself. If you think back to ethnography, right, we're trying to get the linguistic forms within their context. And so the mother, right, Bage, do you see it? My brother, I'll carry the other half. Well, in fact, the mother is very much speaking for Bage, not just to Bage, right? For Bage is modeling language used to teach about a social norm or value such as cooperation. And so we want to move towards approaches that include a range of different kinds of phenomena that one wouldn't find in any just kind of written text in standard English. And this can include things like the prosodic elements of speech, the elements that include things like intonation and rhythm and stress and so on, as well as the phonetic elements, that is, the elements that we may think about in terms of pronunciation, of dialectical variation, and so on. There can be many different features that are included in a transcript, and what features are included are really dependent upon the kinds of questions that you're asking. A rough transcript to a final transcript, that there is a process here, that one might, in listening to an audio recording of a speech event, one might very rapidly do a rough transcription where one just notes words, let's say, in something approaching standard English orthography or writing conventions, to a kind of continual transformation of that transcript, where one begins to move from ordinary standard English conventions to capturing issues of the distinct pronunciation of the participants to the speech event. We just talked about these ideas of like prosody, pronunciation, paralinguistic features. Some things to be thinking about is that voice quality. So I can be really relaxed, right? I can be very soft-spoken, or I can start speaking very, very fast, and I may even sound a little bit irritated or agitated about this. And those kind of qualities of the voice can also be something that you note in your transcription as well. Time markers, very, very useful in a transcript. A research project in which you need to note, and when you're starting to code your data, starting to actually use this data, where important parts of an interview are, where important parts, right, of this data that we have, and we want to find it again. We want to go back to that data. And then finally, this idea of meta comments, so that you can always be commenting in a transcript. You may note facial expressions of someone as they're talking. Maybe their voice quality does not change, but you notice that their facial nonverbal communication changes. And so you can add this kind of descriptive language, meta comments, right, on the transcript. You can put this throughout a transcript, and it really does increase the usability of the transcript. It allows us to increase the amount of information and data that a transcription is going to represent.